Welcome to the FreeGameDonD podcast, life, family, and business. Listen, man, it's just me today. It's just me talking about myself. And I had something that happened to me recently where someone asked me, they said, Don, how did you get into insurance? And I just had to tell a story, man, because I thought about it. I said, man, it was by accident, right? Like I wasn't intending on getting into insurance, right? Um, I don't think anyone, or maybe some people do, maybe if that's your family lineage, or, maybe your parents were in insurance. But in my case, no one was in insurance other than one of my uncles. And it never seemed attractive to me, right? It seemed pretty boring. But what happened was I was in trucking for 20 years, right? And I transitioned from trucking to insurance, but I just always thought I could just do just whatever I wanted to do, man. And some of that goes back to my childhood. My uncle Richard, he used to come down from Atlanta to Augusta every Christmas, and he would bring us gifts, right? And when he would bring gifts, he always had something for everybody. And he gave me a Rubik's Cube. I don't know, maybe I was like 7. And some of you know what a Rubik's Cube is, but I solved this thing while he was down. And he was like, he just was amazed because he thought I would never get this thing figured out, right? But I just stayed with it and I figured it out while he was down. He was only down for a few hours, but I figured it out. And at a young age, I just felt like anything I put my mind to, I could do. So even though I got into insurance by accident, it was just because someone basically, shout out to, I had a buddy of mine, his name is Ike English, man. He basically messaged me on social media and he says, Don, you ever thought about insurance? I was like, not really. But we were in a sports group together and I was always just a vibrant, energetic guy. I ran the sports group and he was one of the guys in my group. And after being in there for a while, one day he just messaged me and he says, Don, you ever thought about being in insurance? And I was like, no. Who thinks about being in the insurance business? Right. But he says, man, can I come and talk to you? So he came over and he talked to me. And what he said sounded very attractive, right? It was about going into life insurance. And he was with a group. I won't say the group's name, but it was a final expense group. And everything sounded good, man. I was like, man, okay, this sounds really attractive. I wasn't even thinking about insurance, right? I've been on the road for 20 years, right? By this time. And I own my own rig. I was an owner operator. Life was good, at least so I thought. It's funny how life works, man. You don't even know what's possible until you start achieving different things, right? And I didn't even think that, certain levels of success were possible, right? But when he messaged me and he talked about insurance and he came over and he talked to me and showed me some stuff, he told me, all you got to do is get your license. I said, get my license? Well, what does that require? I live in the state of Georgia, so I had to do a pre-licensing course. And I did that. And man, got my license. I was doing life insurance initially, which was crazy. I was like, hold up. So we're getting 9-month advances. And some of you are like, well, what does that even mean? So when I first started doing life insurance, we would get advances. So basically, if someone's paying $100 a month for a life insurance policy, they would pay us 9 months in advance on that. So the annual premium of the annual premium. So the annual premium was like $1,200. I would get paid $900 as soon as it got approved. I was like, holy crap. This doesn't even sound legal, right? But it was just a thing that I was like, this can't be legal. I'm going out here helping people. As soon as the policy gets approved, they haven't even made the first payment yet. And I'm getting paid basically 75% of the commissions, on the annual premium up front. And I just wrote a lot of life insurance, right? And and so I kind of liked it. I said, man, I can just do this on the side. I can still run my trucking business. So when people ask me, how did I get into insurance? Oh, it's an accident. Like it was just something that just kind of happened. And then I was like, I kind of liked it. I said, okay, this is cool. And it was a transition for me also because I never liked sales. right? And I hated salespeople. And it's mainly because I've had people in my life that I know that are in sales and they don't, and I didn't like the way they did sales, right? And so sales gets a bad rap because most people are not sales professionals. They're in sales, but they're not professionals. And so, so I didn't even want to be called a sales guy. So people will say, well, oh, I see you're in sales. I would say, no, I'm not. I'm just helping people. No, I'm in sales. I was definitely in sales, even though I didn't own it initially, right? But it's funny because once I really owned it, everything really blew up. But early on, it took me some time to own the fact that I was in sales. But once I did, man, it just blew up. I just never really had any intentions on being in sales, because going through school, man, they almost they should be teaching sales because everything is sold. But I just never just even considered being in insurance or being in sales at all. The closest I thought about being in the sales was real estate. But when my friend came over and talked to me, I was like, man, you know, let's try it. And I tried it. And man, the first year, all I did was life insurance. And I did exceptionally well to the point that I went on a company sponsored trip because I wrote so much business with this particular company. And you guys that are in the business understand you have to write a lot of business to qualify to go on one of these big company trips. And the next year I got introduced to something called Medicare, right? So I'm partnered with Wealth Alliance Group and Kevin Brown. And we were all doing final expense together, but then we started doing something called Medicare. And I wasn't interested in Medicare because it didn't sound sexy. The thing about Medicare, I've always said this, it's not sexy, but the money's X-rated. But I just couldn't get into it initially because it just didn't sound as sexy as these big premiums you get on the life side. But once I gave it a chance, and I remember my very first year in Medicare, I didn't take it seriously at all. Even my first AEP, I didn't start writing business until like the end of November. And those of you that understand how Medicare works, annual enrollment period is between October 15th through December the 7th. And I didn't even start writing business my first AEP until like at the end of November. But I went to go see a final expense client and she had just got a red, white, and blue Medicare card in the mail. And she needed help, and I helped her. And her husband had just got his card as well. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was so blessed because I had a circle of friends that we all started doing final expense around the same time. And I called my friends. Shout out to Anthony Dawkins and his wife, LaToya. I called them, and they kind of helped me, right? They helped me with some of this stuff because I didn't know what I was doing. But I wrote my first policy in Medicare, and it was easy. And then I wrote the husband. Then they referred me to other people. And the referral chain just kind of kept going. And I ended up writing like 27 apps my first AEP. And it was like the easiest 10 grand that I had ever made in my life. Because out of those 27, a lot of them were new to Medicare, right? It was just a very fortunate string of folks. And I was hooked. I was all in. I was all in on Medicare after that, right? But so when people they'll ask me like how did you, because Medicare seems foreign to most people. They're just like, how life insurance they get, property casualty they get, annuities, the financial investment instruments they get, but Medicare how do you get in Medicare? And I think Medicare really changed me because I actually got to actually help people. And we actually were doing Medicare differently. We had this young lady with like, at the time, probably 10 or so years experience in understanding Medicare. And she taught our group extra help. She taught us things that really help people in our community. And I felt like, man, okay, I can get behind this, man. Yeah, I'm writing plans. That's cool. But learning extra help changed the game because I could actually go into people's home and I had a competitive advantage. They're here just to flip and write the plan. But of course, we're going to change your plan if we need to, but let's get you some prescription drug assistance, right? And in doing that, that really just blew us up, man, right? It blew up my personal business. And then my wife got in the business and she saw how much fun I was having with it. And then we started our own agency and we just never looked back. And now Medicare is just our primary focus in business. But when people ask me, they say, they just, how did you, because it's not sexy, right? People are not running around here, talking to you about Medicare opportunities, but they should be. They really should be. Um, but what I will say is that one of the things that has made us successful as an agency is that we teach sales. And I think that's because I don't have a sales background. I had to learn sales. And once I learned sales and realized that everyone is in sales, whether they want to own that or not, they are. If doctor, lawyer, I don't care what you are. If you don't get sales, you're not in business. If someone is not selling, you're not in business. And I think once we own that, because we realized that building an agency, we had to train people how to be educated on Medicare, but we also had to train them on sales. And I think that's where a lot of these other folks in business, in our line of business, are not as successful. They're teaching them Medicare, and that's really cute. You know everything about Medicare. That's great. I mean, I don't want to say cute. It's important. You need to know everything about Medicare, but you don't know anything about sales. Then on top of that, you don't know anything about business. And I think the lucky thing for me is that I had a business background from trucking. So I understood business, but I didn't understand insurance. But once I understood life insurance and was successful at the sales part of life insurance, because you have to sell life insurance. People need life insurance, but they don't want it, right? But so you have to sell life insurance. Medicare, you have to sell the ancillary products. And you still have to sell Medicare, even if it's Medicare Advantage. Some folks pretend that you don't, but you still have to sell it, right? Because there's still a sales job there because you have to sell yourself, right? And you still have to sell the ancillary products like the hospital indemnity and the cancer products and all these other things, right? You do have to, it is a sales job there. But I think when people come to us, we come to realize that they do understand Medicare, but they don't understand any sales or any business structure, right? And I think that's what's really made us successful, because we started off as individual agents. We built a book of business. And what goes wrong in this business is that everyone wants to go to recruiting, right? So it's a lot of folks out there that are in the Medicare space and they go straight to, I want to build a team. You want to build a team, but you're not even built yet. And I think that's why a lot of folks end up dropping out of the business, because they get recruited by someone that wants to make money off of them, but they don't even have any money. They haven't had any success, right? I mean, I think with us, we understood that coming in. I told my wife, I said, hey, listen, we're going to start our own agency. Started our agency in 2019. It was just me and her and one agent, right? But we poured into that agent, and then we got two, and we just kind of continued to grow from there. But the whole objective was, listen, we're not here to use agents. We're gonna pour into agents, and then they're gonna pour into us, right? It's gonna work like that. Just trust me. It's gonna take some time. It may take us 5 years. It may take us 3 to 5 years for sure. But we knew that we could do it, right? Ever since that Rubik's Cube that my uncle gave me, I've always known that there's nothing that I can't do. Nothing. It doesn't matter. I mean, I could pivot again. One of my buddies, shout out to Jacob. I love this guy. He says, man, I just thought it was amazing the way you pivoted from trucking to insurance. And it's one thing to pivot from trucking to insurance. It's another thing to pivot from trucking to insurance and build $1 million insurance agency. These are two different things, right? And to do that successfully, I think that's the thing that's even the most impressive, to do that successfully and give opportunity to other people, right? And so when people ask me, like, how did I get into this business? It's such a long story, because I didn't want to get in this. It was an accident, right? Because if I'd have just kept doing just life insurance, I probably would have just still been trucking. Life insurance didn't excite me. Medicare excited me. Being able to help people in my community with their prescription drugs, that excited me. Being able to add real value, being able to have a competitive advantage over the competition who does not want to do that. That's what excited me. And then being able to duplicate my skill sets that I learned into other productive agents. That's what excited us. So we built a successful insurance agency creating six-figure brokers, right? And that kept us going. That helped us build and build and build and build. We was like, man, got another six-figure broker. Someone else that's truly buying into actually being in the community in a real way, helping people. But man, it all started by accident. It started with sales on the life insurance side. So I always kind of tell people like, man, if you can sell final expense or, if you can sell final expense at a high level, Medicare, man, it's going to be a piece of cake for you. And if you can attach real value to the Medicare, you can make a lot of money. Like if you're someone that actually wants to create a competitive advantage in the industry by actually helping someone for real. And so it's funny, Inflation Reduction Act, was signed by Biden and his administration, and industry was freaking out, last year during the annual enrollment period. But our group, man, we just kept on doing what we do because we're not concerned about the Inflation Reduction Act because we have a competitive advantage over the industry because we focus on extra help. We focus on helping folks with their prescription drug costs. I mean, we've never had, every year we continue to grow. Every single year we have explosions in business. Every year because we add real value. Most of the industry is just flipping plans. Just changing plans. They don't have time to help. I remember one time years ago, I told my wife we wanted something special by helping folks with their prescription drug costs. Because I'm going to say maybe 5 years ago, we were at an event and this young lady had been in the business much longer than us asked us. She said, what are you guys doing to generate so much business? I said, well, we help people with prescription drug assistance. And of course, if they need their plan changed, of course, we help them with that as well. But we start with really adding real value. She says, well, I don't do that. My team, me and my team, we don't do that. We just tell them where to go online and do the application themselves. I was like, okay. In my mind, I was like, good. Right? Understanding that the industry did not do that was a competitive advantage for us. And even me talking about it now, it doesn't matter because people listen to this in the business, they're still not going to do it. They're still not going to, because they don't understand what a competitive advantage is. You're doing the same. Everyone is competing to do the exact same thing, the exact same way, and they're wondering why they're in the same boat. Everybody's trying to get out of the business. No, I'm trying to double down. I'm trying to grow and expand even more. So getting into this business by accident, but then figuring out like, oh, people really need real help. And if we can help them get real help, they're going to give us more referrals. We're going to continue to grow and expand. We can bring folks into the business and not just teach them how to write plans, but actually teach them how to help people in a real way and create some passion and some purpose behind what they're actually doing to make money. Yeah, I think we can really build a successful agency doing this. Right? So getting into the business by accident always, but then falling in love with it. Right? I love Medicare. Right. And I love helping brokers understand, just how they can be an asset in their community, helping people. Right. People still want, one-on-one help. Yeah. I mean, we do we're very diverse in our marketing, but at the end of the day, a lot of folks still want one-on-one assistance. They still want someone they can talk to. They still want someone that they can see. They still want that help. And, when Miss Williams calls you because her prescriptions cost too much, you just flipping her to another plan isn't the answer to her questions, isn't the solution. And I think that's what the extra help really, helping people get extra help really, we realized that was a competitive advantage for us because we could truly help Miss Williams, right? Changing her plan doesn't help her. Getting her extra help with her prescription drugs, that's what's really going to help her. And so getting into this business by accident, but then finding purpose. I always tell people, man, sometimes, you end up stumbling upon your purpose, right? I've always been an energetic guy, always, but I found my purpose within something that I was just good at. right? So I'm good at sales, but then I found purpose within sales as it pertains to leadership. Being able to produce top producers. I try to tell people sometimes who are top producers, but they can't produce top producers. They don't understand your value is very limited. You have to to increase your value. You have to be someone that can duplicate what you've done in the other people, right? And that's my purpose. People that want to be successful in this space, I can help them be successful in this space. I create six-figure brokers. Me and my wife, that's what we do. That's what our agency does. That's what our business partners do. That's what my boy Kevin Brown, man, at Wealth Alliance, that's what we do, right? That's our energy, man. But getting into this business, I keep saying it was an accident, man. But I do believe that God, things happen for a reason, right? He knew, man. He's like, I didn't even talk to the guy. Shout out to Ike, man. Ike was the one that got me into this business. A guy named Ike English. Shout out, I love Ike. And we were cordial in the sports group, but I didn't really know him like that. But because a lot of times, think about it, when someone sends you a private message, you send me a private message on Facebook, you don't always respond to that stuff, right? But I did respond to it because I checked his mutual friends, and he was mutual friends with my brothers. And I said, okay, maybe this is this is a real thing. And so I took it seriously, and it changed my life, right? So that's kind of how I got into the insurance business. And how I got into Medicare was because me and Kevin and some other folks, it was about 5 of us, we were all doing final expense together, and we were killing it and doing well. And, Kevin had someone come and talk to us about Medicare, and we've been off to the races ever since. But, but to me, everything as it pertains to my success started with that Rubik's Cube that my uncle gave me when I was a kid. I just always felt like I could do anything, even getting into trucking. I just felt like I can go to truck driver school, I can learn trucking, and I can be successful. Got my first truck, owner operator. I just thought anything that I want to do, if I put my mind to it, I can do it, period. And that's why me and my wife, we don't do like 5, 6, 7 things at one time, right? Because I believe in order to be great, you have to focus. You have to focus. And whatever we focus on, we dominate. We're great at it, man. So people sometimes will ask me, how did you get into the insurance business? And honestly, man, we started off doing life insurance. And that's because Ike English was in my, my direct messenger, and he talked to me about an opportunity, and it sounded good. But Medicare, was something that we found out maybe after a year or so of doing life insurance, and just never looked back. And Medicare changed the game for my wife and myself, and we've been able to employ our family, give opportunity to other family members to help them build the biggest income they've ever built, not just earned wise, but passive wise. And I think that's the whole key to success, man. People talk about, making money in your sleep, but they don't talk about ways you can actually get that done. See, the way life insurance worked, and some life insurance guys, I don't think they're still understanding the game. I mean, they're just continuously just writing business because that's what they have to do. But the back end money on life insurance just wasn't as attractive as Medicare. Medicare was 100% renewals. 100% is more than whatever the number was on life insurance, which with our contracts, it might have been 10%. And it was 10% on the most volatile product, which was like final expense, right? So I just started doing simple math. I was like, you know what? I think if we continue to do the same thing year after year after year with this Medicare stuff and keep duplicating that, and once we get maybe 300 on the books, then let's go ahead and start building a team and start helping them duplicate what we've done. I think we can build something successful here. I never thought we would build a 7-figure agency, but I did know that, if you continuously pour in, you're going to get certain things out, right? And I think sometimes in business, people want to get something out without pouring something in. People have a hard time with things like delayed gratification. That's tough for some people. Like as soon as they make, some money or have their first successful year, they go out and they buy things. And I think with us, because I had over 20 years experience in business, I understood that, nah, you got to exercise delayed gratification because you might have had one good year. And it might have been a one off. It might have been a one off. It might not be something you can actually duplicate. But once you've shown that you can duplicate this more than once, okay, you got something. Okay, now let's figure out how we can continue to scale and grow this. Give more opportunities to more people and let them help you. There's a book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. Let's get the right who's around us and they'll help us figure out how. And one of our who's is Kevin Brown. We have other who's, that are affiliated with us. And you just keep growing from there because the who's help you with all the hows. But when people ask me about this insurance business and how did because I don't talk about it a whole bunch. Unless someone asks me about it, of course. But I do. I love it. A lot of our core values were just around moving with integrity, building a family-like culture. Our business is Family Financial Consultants because we wanted to build a family business. We wanted our children working in the business, and 2 of our kids are on payroll, and and all of our brokers we treat like family. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, sometimes family don't get along, but everyone gets treated like family, and so it's been a phenomenal experience. But it's an experience that happened by accident. It wasn't something that you know. It wasn't something that it's not like we had this thing mapped out. Like, man, we're going to go into the insurance business and build a successful insurance business and give opportunity to our kids and everybody else that partners with us. We didn't foresee that, right? We didn't, but we did foresee that if you pour in, you're going to get everything you want out. We did foresee if you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get everything that you want. Yeah, we did foresee that. I think that's a proven, method that is going to continue to bear fruit for anyone that believes in that. Keep pouring into other people, especially when you talk about business, and you're going to get everything you want out of a situation. Yeah, man, and I also believe that like if you, um, like I said, if you keep pouring into people, you're going to get everything you want out of a situation, right? But you have to pour into them in a real way. It can't be like, well, if I do this, I'm going to get something. Like you have to genuinely care about people, right? You have to genuinely want to see people win, right? Because if you genuinely want to see other people win, they'll genuinely want to see you win. Like genuinely want to see you win, right? So it can't be, something that you're doing because you expect to get something. You have to just really want to see people win. And me and my wife just have that innate ability to want to see people win. Even if we take losses, and we've taken losses, just to make sure other people win, right? And that's just what you have to do in business, right? So, but I also believe that you're generally one relationship away from getting everything that you want out of this thing called life, right? Relationships are important. And our relationship with Kevin has been important. Our relationship with a lot of our partners has been very important and imperative to our success. And so there's a lot of folks out here that are looking for opportunities and they don't realize they're not around the right people, right? Get around the right people. Remember I said, get around the right who's and they'll show you how, right? And even if they don't know all the hows, they're still the right who's, and they may know other people that know how, right? But the right who's, man, like I said, even if they don't know how, they know other people that know how. Right? If that makes any sense, man. But like the insurance business just changed our lives. It changed our life, man, because we've always preached since day one of starting our agency, freedom and flexibility. Not biggest houses, not biggest cars, not biggest cars, not the fanciest car, not the biggest house, none of this kind of stuff, but freedom and flexibility. um, resources. You have an ability, if you don't want to go to work today, you don't have to. You've built up a passive income stream that actually allows you to go live your life, allows you to take your son or your daughter to basketball practice or to football practice or volleyball, whatever you want to do, man. So my biggest thing is helping people build the life that they want through the vehicle of Medicare, right? But it was something that happened by accident. I didn't even think it was possible. But, I am the son of a tax preparer and a woman who loves, my mother who loves math. And I started looking at the math. I was like, okay, Michael, who's my wife? Hey, we built a successful business on our own pen. If we can duplicate this within our agents, with the way the overrides work and maybe some other stuff, I think we really can build something successful. We can really build something successful. Like I said before, I wish my dad was still here to see some of the success that we've had. I mean, which he has been here to see some of it, but we've continued to scale and grow, just pouring into people. But it was all by accident. Now, I think the core values of who we are is not by accident. Me and my wife, we are who we are, right? And I guess that's being demonstrated through our success in business. But this is who we are, right? And so I think that some people think that you can be someone, you can be one way in business and be another way personally. No, if you're a giver personally in your regular life, it'll translate over into business, right? And to me, that's what translates into real success in business. Like who you are personally, people will gravitate towards that. You won't have to sell, you'll attract when it comes to people partnering with you, right? My job is not to sell someone on what it's like to be with our agency. My job is to attract, right? And me and my wife are very attractive, right? I'm talking about physical looks. We're just talking about the way we handle business. And that's why we've built a successful agency. But I just want to talk about that because people, I always get asked like how did y'all get into the insurance business? And it was by accident, right? It was by accident. But as a child, I could everything I wanted to do. My dad would always say, whatever you put your mind to. He told me this, maybe like I don't know, 30 years ago. He just every time I would do something, he'd just be like, whatever you decide to do, you just do it, boy. I was like, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't realize it. But I didn't realize it at the time, but he was right. If I decide tomorrow to get out of insurance and go build a business doing something that has nothing to do with insurance, I'm going to go be great at it. I'm going to go be great at it. Right. I'm going to do all the work. Was never one of these kids that was big on school, but I was always big on education. And I think that's the thing that's missing in our society. A lot of folks care about grades in school, but they don't care about an education. Right. So I was always big on education. So I educated myself on sales. Right. And when I educated myself on sales, after educating myself everything I needed to know about Medicare, and I already had 20 years experience in business, I said, okay, I think we got something here, Michael. I think we can do something with this. But we're going to spend, 5 years or so with some delayed gratification while we build up other people. And I think we have something special here. But insurance was a total accident. I'm not going to never pretend like this was just something that I had any intentions on being involved in. Right. I'm not going to tell that lie. But, so there's probably something that you're good at, right? There's probably something that once you find out what you're good at, you're probably going to find your purpose within that. And I always said your purpose is that in which you do, which requires the least amount of effort. Your purpose is that in which you do that requires the least amount of effort. You just wake up and do this. And I can speak. I can motivate. I've been able to inspire other people. These are not my words. This is what they say. I'm just waking up being Donald Duck. But people like that. So, hey, I ride with it. And I'm grateful to be in that position that to be able to create people to build successful businesses, right? That's something that I take a lot of pride in, building up other people. And I do that while continuously building up myself, right? Always just trying to get better and better and better on this journey of self development. It just never stops. But getting into the insurance business was an accident. Life insurance, I guess that side, like I say, that was an accident, but somewhat intentional. I mean, once my friend contacted me, I said, okay, I'm gonna get my license. I'm gonna do life insurance. The Medicare, I was like, I had no interest in doing Medicare. It didn't sound sexy, right? It didn't. And I think when you grow up in environments where you don't even understand that passive income is a real thing, right? All you understand is, oh, if I go out and sell a certain amount this week, I'm going to get a certain amount on my paycheck. That's how you move, because that's the only thing that you know. You don't know, oh, hold up. If I get in this line of insurance, maybe I'll make less up front, but on the back end, I'm gonna give you an example. With life insurance, you're probably it depends on what product you're writing, but let's say you're writing final expense, which is burial insurance, which is very volatile. But you have to write $1 million in final expense insurance just to make $100,000 passively. With Medicare, you have to write, I don't know, maybe 330, 40 Medicare apps to make 100,000 passively. And most of the plans don't cost anything. And then if you're also concentrating on the ancillary products, that's even better, meaning like cancer products and hospital indemnity and things of that nature. I mean, to me, it just made the math better on the Medicare side. It's not even close, right? And my job is to build, my wife since day one, freedom and flexibility. When it was just me and her, freedom and flexibility. That's what we need in our life. We need to build some freedom and we need some flexibility, because we want to spend more time with our kids. We want to spend more time with each other. We actually want to retire. People be like, man, I want to retire when I get a certain age. No, you're going to retire when you get a certain amount of income. And if you never get that income, guess what? You're never going to retire. Right? So freedom and flexibility was something that was real for me and my wife. And so Medicare insurance, it solved a lot of problems for us, right? When it came to retirement and how we wanted to live our life and how we wanted to move. And we didn't want to just be in sales. We wanted to be in purpose. And Medicare gave us purpose within the sales business, within the insurance business, right? But it was all an accident. It's amazing how many folks create successful businesses by something they had not even thought about. It just kind of happened, but then they found purpose within it. And I think that's one of the things that has helped us continuously grow, finding purpose within it. Right? I mean, it's been a great journey, and we're always trying to find ways to get better. Right? We're always looking for ways to give more. Right? People, we've sat down with people, big, big groups that have wanted to partner with us. And they're like, you guys are running a LOA shop. Basically meaning that like we're giving folks free marketing and other stuff that most groups here have to pay for. Right? But we're doing it at no cost to a lot of these folks, because we know that when you win, we win. And my job is to help you get to wins as quickly as possible. My job is to get you what I like to call a faith check, a confidence check, as quickly as possible. Right? And so we just know that if I help you win, I'm going to win. I know that. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. That is going to happen. All I have to do is help you win, get you to buy in on what's possible. Right? But yeah, man, we got into this insurance business totally by accident. Started off doing life, stumbled into Medicare, But once we got to Medicare, that was it. We didn't look back, and just been blessed, man, to really have good people around us, man. You know, just just blessed to have great people. And even when we have situations that could be, you know, sometimes you get brokers, and sometimes you have people that cause problems. But at the end of the day, our culture is rock solid, right? And if you can build a business with a great culture, people can, like, no negativity can come in between that, right? Me and my wife are just, we've always done right by everybody. And that speaks volumes when other people may, even try to say something negative about us. It doesn't work. They're just, they're making themselves look bad almost, man. So we're so blessed, man, that we conduct business a certain type of way. That when anybody says anything about us, it has to be positive. That's just how we move, man. But all this happened by accident, though, man. Yeah, it's crazy. And sometimes you have to, I've always been the kind of guy that, like, I always move very quietly. I'm not loud like that. Like, hey, look at me. I built this, I just didn't get into all that kind of stuff, man. But sometimes people need to know what's possible. I'm starting to realize that people need to know. Sometimes you got to let people know, like, listen, I'm winning. And if you want to win, you need to roll with the winners. LeBron used to have this thing. When LeBron was in Cleveland, he had this thing, I think it was called RTW. No, roll with, I'm sorry, RWTW, right? Yeah. Yeah. Roll with the winners. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to get it right. And, and winning is an attitude, it's energy, right? And you need that in business. You need people that not only have won, but have winning energy, right? They don't just teach you about the fundamentals of the product, but they teach you sales, technique, they teach you business, structure, things like this to help you win long term, not just in the now, but to really set you up to win long term, right? I mean, when brokers talk to me about this business, I'm saying, okay, well, what is it going to take to replace your income? Okay, you're making 60, 70, 80 grand. Okay, how many apps do we need to renew to get to that point? I just believe that if you can make the future bigger, it makes the present more bearable. Like, whatever struggle you're going through presently, if the future's big, right? If you can see the bigness, right, and the success of the future, it makes you wake up every day in the present and, hear no's and go through struggles and all this other kind of stuff, because your future's big. You just got to keep going. So, yeah, man. We got into this by accident. We even got into building an agency by accident. We just wanted to write Medicare. We just wanted to help people get prescription drug assistance, get on the Medicare savings program, just help people in the community in a real way. And of course, we wanted to, get paid to do that, right? But we never even had any, um, you know, any thoughts of even building an agency. We were just gonna just be individual agents writing business. Didn't have any goals of starting an agency. But sometimes people see stuff in you, and my brother Kevin Brown, he was like, dude, you got it, man. You know, we're just getting into this Medicare space, man, and I want you to be, I want you to start an agency. And so, we got everything structured, and we did it. Like I said, we wasn't really interested in the beginning, but we got everything structured and set up. And first couple of years, just a very small agency, a few agents. I mean, nothing major. And then once we really bought into scaling and growing, then we just exploded. Yeah. But it did take some time for us to truly buy into agency building, right? But a lot of this stuff happened by accident. But who we are is not an accident. That's why I say, man, what's in you is not an accident. Now, some of the things that you may be a part of could be something that you kind of stumbled upon, but like who you become, that's already in you, man. There's things in you right now that that are going to come through maybe, certain things you're doing, right? And I think that's kind of how insurance worked with us, man. Insurance opened up a whole lot of other things for us. And in trucking, I made good money, right? And that was enough for me initially until I got into insurance. And then I realized, okay, making money isn't enough. I need more freedom. I need more flexibility. You know, um, I want to do what I want to do with my family whenever I decide that I want to do it, right? I want to make sure retirement is secured. I want to make sure that my kids are secured. I want healthy trusts set up. I want everything structured a certain type of way, right? And these are not things that some first generation real wealth builders. Shout out to my mom. My mom, um, well, I guess I'm somewhat second generation because my mom owns a lot of properties. She's done well, but even she's still trying to figure out some of the structure side, in my opinion. And me and her, we'll talk about that in the future. But like, um, I do think that a lot of us are new to building wealth, right? So we have to get around other wealth builders, and people will share things with you. They will. You just have to ask them. You have to ask. People that are building wealth are not out here, they're not flashy. They're not just like, they're not just running around and running their mouth all the time. Right. So, but when people ask me like how you built an insurance business, how'd you build a successful, 7-figure insurance agency? Well, it was by accident, getting into this business. But once I got in and I took it seriously, I just reflected on a lot of the core values that I had when I was in trucking. I leveraged all of my business knowledge from trucking, but now I'm just in a much better situation financially to really 10x that, right? But I did leverage a lot of the things that I learned in trucking. Even in trucking, I exercised delayed gratification, right? I was never a guy that lived over my means or even at my means, right? Um, but in trucking, I wasn't scaling. I just owned one truck, and it was the truck that I was running. So I wasn't even a real business owner. I was a sole proprietor. I created a job for myself, which was that's the beginning stages. But having something that runs without you, that's where you want to be in business. You want to pour into something to the point that it's going to pay you whether you doing something to generate revenue on your own pen or not, right? And so that's where you want to be at. But it all happened by accident. But who me and my wife are, that is not an accident. That is intentional. That is the way we were raised by our parents. Um, that's you know, that's our core values and our beliefs and how we move and how we conduct ourselves, our character, um, and us moving with integrity. None of that's an accident. But having the level of success we've had in business, um, is a reflection of that. But us being in this business is certainly an accident. Yeah, I would have never gotten into insurance on my own. But shout out to Ike, man. I'm always gonna give him love, man. That guy, man. Yeah, he saw it. He saw it first. Like, hey, man, I think you could, dude. You got good energy, man. You need to be in the insurance business, man. Yeah, somebody sees something in you right now. They believe in you more than you believe in yourself. Matter of fact, it's not even that you don't believe in yourself. You just hadn't seen it yet, but they seen it first. And Ike English saw it first. And then Kevin was like, man, bruh, you know, I need you to help me do something. And just been off to the races. And now I'm identifying people that I know can be leaders, people who I know can go to the next level. It's in them, So, yeah, man, but it was an accident though. But who we are, who me and my wife are, that's no accident. Yeah. Yeah, listen, man. That's going to conclude an episode of Free Game Don D, life, family, and business.